Imagine waking up and realizing that every hour of your day belongs to you, not to a partner's expectations, not to arguments, emotional negotiations, or subtle guilt, not to a timeline someone else designed for your life, just you, your time, your direction, your pace. For a growing number of men, that's not a fantasy, not a phase, not some immature refusal to settle down. It's a chosen way of living, a deliberate, conscious path. And here's the part that unsettles a lot of people. It's not empty. It's not sad. It's not proof that something is wrong with them. For many men, it's the first time life has ever felt fully theirs. What used to be treated as a warning sign, he's still single, something must be off, is quietly becoming a new version of freedom. One that challenges the old script about what a man should be by a certain age and replaces it with something far more honest. A man is not defined by whether he has a partner. He's defined by whether he has purpose. The awakening, when solitude stops looking like failure. For a long time, men were conditioned to move along a predictable conveyor belt. Get stable, get married, get a mortgage, have kids, grind until retirement. Anything outside that pattern, suspicious. If you weren't in a relationship by a certain age, the whispers started. He's afraid of commitment. He just needs to grow up. He's wasting his best years. But quietly, beneath that noise, something began to shift. Men started speaking openly in podcasts, forums, and real conversations. They started saying what they actually felt. I'm not scared of commitment. I'm scared of losing myself. I'm not avoiding relationships. I'm avoiding bad ones. I'm not lonely. I just finally have room to breathe. That's the first stage of the shift, breaking through the fog. You go from feeling guilty for wanting space to realizing your desire for space is normal, healthy, and necessary. You notice that being alone feels more peaceful than being half dissolved inside a relationship that drains you. You start to see that your self-respect grows fastest when it's not constantly being negotiated away. And somewhere in that process, you realize something that used to sound almost offensive. A fulfilled man isn't built around partnership. He's built around mission. A relationship can be a powerful addition to that, but it can never replace it. What autonomy really looks like for a man. The world often mislabels male independence as immaturity, fear of intimacy, emotional unavailability, a failure to man up. Most men internalize those accusations before they ever question them. But when you strip away the noise and actually look at what intentional autonomy looks like in a man's life, you see something very different. Independence stops being a shield and becomes a form of clarity. It's not, I don't need anyone because I'm broken. It's, I'm done giving myself away cheaply. Let's break down what that independence actually changes. 1. Financial autonomy. Money that reflects you, not compromise for many men. The first visible shift is financial. When you're not splitting everything by default, funding lifestyles you didn't choose, arguing over priorities, trying to prove your worth by how much you provide. You suddenly see your money differently. You start to invest with long-term strategy instead of emotional impulse. Spend in alignment with your values, not someone else's moods. Build emergency funds, assets, and options. The power isn't just in having more cash, it's in this. Every financial decision becomes a reflection of who you are and where you're going, not what you need to do to keep a relationship from falling apart. There's no silent resentment in the background, no feeling like you're bleeding out for a life you're not fully choosing. Money becomes less about survival and more about sovereignty. 2. Personal growth. Without interruption, Most men underestimate how much emotional bandwidth a relationship consumes, especially a turbulent one. When you're single by choice, something subtle but powerful happens. Your evenings stop being about de escalating someone else's emotions, taking responsibility for feelings that aren't yours, texting nonstop to avoid being accused of pulling away. Instead, they become available for learning new skills, training your body, building something of your own, reflecting, planning, thinking long term. You return to things you abandoned, the guitar you left in the corner, the language you always wanted to learn, the projects you kept saying you'd start once things calmed down, the curiosity you buried under obligation, time that once felt negotiated now feels invested. And once you get a taste of that compounding growth, day after day, week after week, month after month, it becomes difficult to go back to a life where you're always negotiating your potential to manage someone else's instability. You're not running from connection. You're finally nurturing the parts of you nobody ever protected. 3. Solitude. That sharpens connection, not destroys it. The biggest lie about single men is simple. If you're alone, you must be lonely. But when you actually listen to men who live intentionally single, you hear something else. My connections got better when I stopped needing them. When you're no longer trying to fill a void, you choose your friends more carefully. Cut out dead weight relationships that drain you. Talk to people because you want to, not because you're terrified of being alone. Recognize manipulation or disrespect faster and walk away sooner. Your social life doesn't vanish, it evolves. You stop trying to be liked by everyone. You stop chasing emotionally unstable people for validation. You gravitate toward men and women who respect your time, your boundaries, and your focus. The result? Fewer connections, stronger connections, less performance, more authenticity. Independence doesn't make you a hermit by default. It gives you a clearer filter. You stop building your life around being chosen and start building it around being aligned. The people who fit stay. The ones who don't fall away. The quiet upgrade, how singlehood changes a man's daily life. One of the most underrated shifts that happens when a man chooses this path is how his everyday life changes, slowly at first, then dramatically. 1. Your home becomes a fortress, not a compromise. When you live alone or live on your own terms, your environment starts to reflect you. Not what someone else wants, not a compromise between two opposing preferences. You. You decide the layout, the light, the level of order. What's on the walls? What's in the fridge? What your mornings and evenings look like. Your place stops being where you crash and starts becoming a base of operations, a space tuned for focus, training, recovery, and clarity, a space where every item has a purpose or meaning, a space where you walk in and instantly feel, I built this for me. It's not just aesthetics, it's psychology. Your surroundings stop reflecting the constant negotiation of a shared life and start reflecting identity. 2. Physical health that finally has room to breathe. Men rarely connect physical decline with relational tension until they leave the tension and watch their body respond. Without constant arguments, passive aggressive comments, walking on eggshells, emotional shockwaves every other week. Your nervous system finally stops living in survival mode. You start to fall asleep faster, sleep deeper, eat more intentionally, train more consistently, recover better. You notice the weight in your chest lifting, the background dread vanishing, the random fatigue easing up. You're not magically healthier. You've just removed a constant source of friction. When your mind isn't stuck in emotional firefighting, your body can actually do its job: grow, repair, reset. 3. Stress reduction that feels almost unreal. One of the most shocking things men report after stepping into intentional singlehood is the sheer calm of it. No one is. Demanding emotional labor on their schedule, expecting you to pre-read unspoken needs, punishing you for not responding in exactly the right tone at the right time, turning every small issue into a deeper test of your love, loyalty, or masculinity. The noise drops. You don't realize how much stress you were carrying until it's gone. Then you feel it. You drive in silence and feel relaxed instead of tense. You go an evening without checking your phone 10 times. Your weekends feel like open landscapes, not battlefields. This peace isn't laziness, it's bandwidth. The more stable your emotional environment becomes, the more mental space you have for strategy, creativity, long term planning, actually thinking about who you want to be. And as that becomes your normal, you start to realize just how much of your previous life was built around constant emotional maintenance. The cultural shift, redefining what a successful man looks like. As more men make this choice consciously, the culture is being forced to adapt. For decades, a man's worth was measured by his relationship status, his role as provider in a household, how early he settled down, how well he played the traditional family script. The message was clear: if you're single too long, you've failed. That idea is dying, slowly but undeniably. Men are rewriting the metrics. Am I on mission? Do I respect the man I see in the mirror? Is my life aligned with my values or just socially approved? Am I building something real or just ticking boxes? Masculinity is being reframed too. Strength is no longer just absorbing everyone else's burdens, sacrificing yourself endlessly, proving you can endure a miserable life because it's the right thing. Strength is increasingly maintaining self respect, guarding your mental health, holding your boundaries, choosing relationships that add to your life, not consume it. The solitary man is no longer automatically broken. He's increasingly seen as focused, clear headed, purpose driven, unwilling to trade his peace for a storyline that doesn't fit him. Media, influencers, and content creators are catching up. For the first time in a long time, men are hearing public voices say, you're allowed to value your emotional safety. You're allowed to opt out of a system that doesn't serve you. You're allowed to build a life that's just yours. The double-edged sword. Solitude versus isolation. Now, here's where things get serious. Freedom is powerful. And like anything powerful, it can cut both ways. The same independence that gives you space, clarity, focus can, if left unchecked, slide into something else. Disconnection. There's a crucial distinction. Isolation is a retreat, driven by fear, avoidance, bitterness, or unresolved pain. Solitude is space you create intentionally to think clearly, grow, and stabilize. On the outside, they can look similar. Inside, they feel completely different. A man in healthy solitude still engages with his community, keeps a few strong friendships or brotherhoods, invests in his physical, mental, and financial growth, stays open to connection but not desperate for it. A man in unhealthy isolation slowly stops reaching out, uses busyness or hobbies as an escape from unresolved wounds, convinces himself he doesn't need anyone, while quietly hurting, hardens emotionally, not out of strength but out of fear. The line between the two isn't always obvious. That's where self-awareness comes in. You have to ask yourself, is my quiet time replenishing me, or numbing me? Do my routines keep me grounded or keep me stuck? Am I choosing solitude or am I hiding in it? If I needed help tomorrow, is there anyone I can call? The strongest men aren't the ones who never need anyone. They're the ones who can stand alone, but still know how and when to connect. They use freedom to purify connection, not to erase it. Not every man, not one path. Different ways. Independence shows up. This lifestyle doesn't land the same way for every man. For some, intentional singlehood is the final form. For others, it's a season of recalibration before they re-enter the world on better terms. Roughly, you can think of 3 types of men in this space. 1. The deep introvert and builder. This man is naturally introspective. He thrives in quiet environments, long stretches of solo work, deep focus on craft, career, or projects. For him, singlehood isn't empty, it's optimal. He uses independence to build businesses, careers, or skills, explore complex topics, create systems and structures in his life. Relationships may still be in his future, but they'll have to fit into a life that's already full, not rescue him from a life that's empty. 2. The relational man who needs a reset. This man genuinely loves connection. He enjoys partnership sharing life, building with someone, but he's been burned, toxic dynamics, codependence, constant self-sacrifice. Singlehood for him is a reset phase, remembering who he is outside of a relationship, rebuilding his boundaries, identifying what he will and will not tolerate next time when he re-enters a partnership. He does it with clear standards, stronger sense of self, far less willingness to abandon his identity. 3. The hybrid. This man lives in between. He values companionship, shared experiences, human warmth, but he also knows he cannot lose himself again. He needs space for his inner world. Any relationship must respect his independence. For him, independence isn't the end goal. It's the base layer, the foundation. Any connection he builds must stand on top of it, not replace it. The core of it all, what freedom actually means for a man. When a man walks through all these layers, the awakening, the daily changes, the cultural shift, the nuance of solitude versus isolation, he eventually hits the real question. What does freedom actually mean to me? Not what the internet calls freedom. Not what friends think looks impressive. Not what old traditions or new trends say. What do I want my life to feel like? For many men who choose singlehood as a conscious lifestyle, the answer is not, I want to avoid responsibility. I want to avoid love. I want to avoid effort. It's, I refuse to betray myself again. Freedom, at its deepest level, becomes this: living in alignment with your values, owning your time, guarding your mental and emotional health, choosing connection from strength, not from emptiness. A relationship doesn't become the enemy. It becomes optional. Something you may welcome if it respects what you've built inside yourself. Singlehood stops being a waiting room. It becomes a legitimate destination for some and a necessary training ground for others. For the men who remain single long term, it can be a life rich with purpose, filled with discipline, legacy, and contribution, free from constant emotional chaos. For the men who eventually choose partnership, it becomes a foundation of self-respect, a safeguard against losing themselves, a filter that ensures they choose wisely, not desperately. Either way, the victory is the same. He doesn't abandon himself for validation. The bottom line, your peace is no longer negotiable. In the end, this entire shift comes down to one core decision. You stop letting the world dictate what your life must look like to count. You stop chasing relationships to prove you're normal, staying in dysfunction to avoid judgment, measuring your worth by whether someone chooses you. Instead, you choose your path with intention. Decide what kind of man you want to be. Build a life that reflects that decision. Allow relationships only if they align with that life. That's what real freedom looks like. Not a life without connection. A life where your connection to yourself is no longer sacrificed for acceptance. Whether you stay single and build a partnership later or move between the two over time, the essential shift is this: your peace is not up for trade anymore. And once a man reaches that point, truly reaches it, the way he lives, works, loves, and walks through the world is never the same again.